smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi. Oh my gosh. Wait, am I frozen? I'm like doing something right now that I'm not doing. If you listen to me right now or watching me on a replay, thank you so much for watching me. I appreciate you. I know you can hear me, but you can't see me right now because it's in slow motion. Let me just, I thought I fixed it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch to a different Wi-Fi setting. I thought okay. All right, we're back. I was frozen for how long? For a couple minutes, but thank goodness I've been doing this for a long time, so I've been able to roll with the punches. So my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on. I talk to people who are doing things to empower other people. And I've been able to do that by sharing their story. So I've been podcasting since 2018 in July. So it's about to be 3 years, crazy. 3 years since I've been podcasting, but going live started after the pandemic. So since March, I've been podcasting live, which is why like these little things that happen, I'm able to roll with the punches. I'm able to roll with the punches. So I'm going to introduce our guest. I have a really special guest. All of my guests are so special. I'm going to add her to the stream. Hello. Dr. Charity, can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Hello, everyone. Celeste's audience. I'm Dr. Lynette Charity. I'm a retired anesthesiologist turned stand-up comic and professional speaker.
Thank you. Because of people like you, I've been able to have 2 successful C-sections.
Yay!
One of the things that she says is that she helps people pass gas. Why do you say you help people pass gas?
Well, it's not that I help people pass gas. In my comedy routine, I say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Charity. I'm an anesthesiologist." That's right. I get paid to pass gas.
Well, I am grateful for you being here, and we're going to have a conversation. You know, she does have a great voice. I heard your story, and it's so inspiring. And one of the things about this podcast is that people kind of listen to it because of the stories that are told. And somebody's always going through something, right? But unfortunately, we tend to feel like we're alone because nobody really talks. So I'm going to walk people through your story so that they can have an idea that you didn't wake up and become a doctor overnight. It was a journey, right? It was a long journey. So tell people about where you were born. Where did you grow up at?
Okay, I am 68 years old. I was born in 1952 for you youngins out there. And basically, I was born in the segregated South. I grew up in Norfolk and Portsmouth, Virginia. And during that period of time, I tell people I lived in a colored neighborhood. I played with my colored friends and I went to a colored school. And it's hard to think about the fact that that wasn't really that long ago, that that was the truth here in our country. But yes, that's where I grew up. I grew up in the projects, which people don't really understand exactly what that is. But back in the day, it was the housing projects and it kind of got shrunken down to projects, but they were just government housing, low income housing for minorities at the time. Any
Yeah.
more would you like of that?
So you grew up in the projects, and that was something that, the projects that we see now, was it similar to the projects that they had back then, or was it worse?
Actually, it was much better back then.
Oh,
We the way it worked is that my father worked for the government, and because everything was segregated, they actually built low income housing, low rental housing for the minority workers. We lived in what was called the projects, but these places were really nice. We had a 2-bedroom place. It had grass in the backyard, grass in the front yard. They did have people that came around and made sure that we kept it clean, but it was actually very nice. I lived in, when I was first born, I lived in something called Liberty Park. And then we moved to Roberts Park, and these were the projects. But Roberts Park were brick buildings, brick row houses, 2 to 3 bedrooms, and with trees and a community center and a playground, a very nice neighborhood, of course, all Black. But the point is that we were such a wonderful community. I tell people that the neighbors helped raise me because back then the neighbors could beat you just as much as your parents could if they saw you doing
right,
something
right,
wrong. So I can't say that my growing up in the projects was detrimental to my well-being at all.
Oh, wow, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Now, you're in the projects. You have siblings. At 6 years old, your life changed. Tell people about, kind of what happened during this time, and what was kind of the response from the adults with the kids.
Well, the thing is that I was the third of 5 children in my family. When I was 6 years old, well, when I was actually 4 years old, my sister was born, Beverly. When I was 6 years old, the 4 Charity children, my 2 older brothers, my sister, and I went off to get ice cream at the local ice cream place. And in the process of crossing a street, which we had crossed numerous times, a car came out of nowhere and hit my sister and killed her. And she was 2 years old. And the interesting thing about that is there was always this concept of children are to be seen and not heard. When this all happened, the adults were all consoled, but they sent us as the children to our rooms. We didn't know exactly what happened. And me as a 6-year-old, I didn't understand death. I saw my sister lying in the street. I saw her bleeding. I saw all of that. But I honestly still didn't conceive that she wasn't going to come home later. And while they were consoling my parents and my grandparents and other people, they left us to ourselves. And we had no counseling. Nowadays there are counseling for young children, but back then there just wasn't. And I tell people, I think that was at the moment, and my mom even said it, was that I lost my smile. That's the way she said it, is that I had been a pretty good, happy kid up to that point, but that totally devastated me because I actually went to my sister's funeral, and I was Baptist. I grew up Baptist, and we had to kiss our family members goodbye. And I'm 6 years old, and I have been asked to. My brothers helped me to raise up. My sister was in a beautiful pink coffin to raise up, and I had to kiss her goodbye. And I think that that was a very pivotal moment in my life, very traumatic. And I knew what that was in the coffin was not my sister, but to this day, I can still see it. I still see that happening. And so I tell people, I think that that was the moment when my father had suffered with depression. My mother had depression. We talk about it potentially being genetic, but this traumatic event affected me and my brothers for the rest of our lives. So that to me is where I think that I started looking for something. I became a very angry child. I got into a lot of fights. I wasn't really focused on my education. And fortunately for me, at the age of 9, I was watching a TV show, and it was a doctor show called Ben Casey. And I'm watching the show, and Ben Casey comes on, and literally, I tell people this is what I believe. He turned to me through my black and white TV screen and said, "Lynette, you're going to be a doctor." At least that's what I believed. And I told my mom, I said, "Mama, I'm going to be a doctor." And my mom said, that's fine, child. And I really didn't think she listened to me. But about 3 weeks later, on my bed when I came home from school, was a toy doctor kit. And it had a stethoscope in it, and a reflex hammer, and a blood pressure cuff, and a fake syringe. And I told everyone, "Dr. Charity is in the house." And I went around trying to give shots to all of my friends at the time, and they would run away from me but that's where I found my purpose. That's where I found my focus. That's when I think my brain shifted a little bit from this angry child that didn't understand to saying, maybe if I become a doctor, I can save someone like my sister. Mm-hmm. Maybe the future kids that have problems or future people, being a doctor. And there's something about that respect, because we can all say, growing up in the segregated South, there wasn't a lot of that around. So I felt that if I grew into this, then I could help people, but also people wouldn't just look at this. They would go, "Oh my goodness, she's a doctor." Right, so we have to listen to her.
Right. And one of the things that as people are talking, I want to kind of interject in regards to Dr. Charity talking about the response for parents and, teachers or providers. Be mindful of when trauma or tragedy happens, trying to gloss over it, trying to put them in programs to try to forget about it. That does not work. The body keeps the score. And Dr. Charity's 68 years old and vividly remembers that time period and how affected she was. But, her aggressive behavior, acting out, was a direct response to not knowing where to allow those emotions to go. So it's so important, so imperative that we have conversations, even with everything that's happening around the world, with COVID, all of the things that are happening. And I understand that as adults and parents that we have a lot on our plates, but, just because the kids are being fed and clothed doesn't mean that they're not struggling with what's taking place around the world today. So yeah, thanks.
Well said, Celeste. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was very interesting back then because the way my parents coped with losing a child was they forgot about her.
Dang.
Yeah.
So you guys didn't talk about her after that?
Didn't talk about her after that. Pictures were gone. Nothing was there. And there's something called the replacement child syndrome. You probably know about that, Celeste, where people try to replace the child that they lose. My mom immediately had another child.
Yeah.
In an attempt to do that. Turns out it was a boy, so it wasn't exactly what my father wanted, because he wanted a daughter to replace Beverly. But that's what they did.
So that happens, very profound in the family. You watch the show. you want to be a doctor, right? You feel like I could use this career to save people, because I'm sure you took that on yourself in your little 6-year-old brain, trying to figure out, if I had done this or if I had done this, she would still be here, because nobody's having dialogue with you. So now you find some kind of passion and purpose in this. Now we fast forward to high school, right? You want to get into this amazing school because the school had better books. And so what do you do to convince your mom to get in to the school?
Well, I tell people the story, and if you're not aware about it, Celeste listeners, is that there was something called the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education, which said that separate but equal schools were unconstitutional. So then I tell people, Virginia didn't get the memo for 12 years. So we still had segregated schools. Once it did happen, which was in 1966, I was a freshman in high school, in the segregated high school, the black high school in my neighborhood. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, I really want to go to that other school, because I had heard, we always had hand-me-down books. We always wondered, right across the street, almost a mirror image of our community was the white community. And I had always heard that they had really good books. And I knew that education was my key to my escape and to become a doctor. And I asked my mom, and she said no, because she had heard about the Little Rock Nine. She had heard a lot about the violence of trying to integrate schools, and she didn't want me to get hurt. So, like a good daughter and everything, I forged her name on the slip to get into this high school. And when she found out, she was upset that I had disobeyed her. But then she said, it sounds like you're willing to take this risk, and I really should not stand in your way. And I go, thank you, Mom. I really appreciate that. Now, they didn't have any bus service, anything in place at the time. So having never been across that street through that neighborhood, on the first day of school, going to this new integrated school, I had to walk through the white neighborhood. And I'm a member of Toastmasters. And when I explained this story, I was in Kuala Lumpur trying to share this story. So I did it in the form of me being Dorothy, going through the haunted forest and meeting a bunch of wicked witches, because that's exactly what happened to me. As I walked through there, you don't belong here, go back to Africa. And I went, how can I go back to Africa? I've never been to Africa. But they were saying all of these things to me, but I had Aretha Franklin, #1 in my head, RESPECT, find out what it means to me. That had just come out. So I'm humming that song, and my eye is on the prize. I've got to get to this school. And so despite what they were doing and what they were saying, I kept going. And I tell people, I started out walking, then it was a trot, then it was a sprint, and then it was a pretty fast sprint. But I made it through the neighborhood. And subsequent days, I would just change my route, in case I met anybody, and I would make it. And finally, they got a bus system, and I made it to the school. And then my goal was to just prove to them that I was very good, that I was a smart kid. I'm not going to, even though I used to fight and beat up kids and everything, I still really loved reading books. And when my sister died, I would go places like I'd go to the Alps with Heidi, or I'd go to Anne and Green Gables. I would just love to read. And I just said, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to prove to them that I can do the work. And I was a straight A student, and I was National Honor Society. I won the French club contest and poetry. Bonjour, comment vas-tu? I did all of these things. And then I end up wanted to go to college. And so I went to speak to my guidance counselor about it. And I still remember that day too, where I go, hi, Miss Pollard, I really would like to go to college. Will you help me with my applications? And she goes, Lynette. That's what they call me instead of Lynette. Why on earth do you want to go to college? Well, I want to go to college because I want to go to medical school someday. College, medical school. Now, you might be able to get in one of those Negro colleges, but no medical school is going to take a colored girl. You should be a typist. But I didn't want to be a typist. I wanted to be a doctor. And what is amazing is I tell people all the time, if you are on your mission and you're not going to let anybody destroy your dreams, when one door closes, another door opens. And it was amazing. That day I went home, I was in tears. I get to my front door, and as I'm opening the door, my mom bursts outside and she goes, Lynette, you will not guess who just called me. And I go, no, Mom, I can't guess. Well, it was an admissions counselor from a women's college in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Chatham College. And she wanted me to come and interview at that college. And my mom said, well, I told her we don't have any money. I can't afford to send you up there. She sent me a round trip bus ticket to go and interview. And 20 hours up from, Portsmouth, Virginia to Pittsburgh. I interviewed over the weekend. I came home with a 4-year academic scholarship and my acceptance letter. I was going to college.
That is amazing.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's amazing. What do you feel like the watching the show helped, like that vision kind of drove you into moving past obstacles? Because I know even after you got into college, there were still obstacles, not just being Black, but also or as you say, because you say the reason why she talks about it saying colored, because she wants to be clear on how we went from Negro to colored to Black to African American, right?
Yes.
So I know that, and also being a woman, that you were met with many obstacles trying to just go to school. What is it that kept you going over those years?
Well, I tell people that what Ben Casey did for me, number one, was put that idea, that concept in. And some people ask me if I had role models, did I know Black physicians? Did any of that happen? Now, I was a sickly kid, and we had a colored hospital. And so I did encounter male colored doctors, no females. All the females were nurses. But maybe that was in the back of my mind. But I have to admit that Ben Casey, just watching the episodes and the respect that he got, and everybody looked up to him. And I go, I want some of that. I want some of that for me. And I think that was what just kept me going. I mean, yes, I got that one, naysayer at the beginning, but then the school came through. Based on, my grades. I mean, I did the SAT. I didn't ask for, I tell people all the time, I asked for a hand up. I didn't ask for a handout. I knew I could do the work. Just give me a chance to show I can do the work, and then you be a judge of whether I'm good at it or not. And so that's what happened. And when I went to college, I was there on a scholarship. There was no way in the world I was not going to get through that. So it for me, it was just one of those things of every obstacle I managed to overcome because I kept the positive attitude of my eye on the prize. I knew I could become a doctor, but I just had to put my head down and just do the work. And that's what I did.
Wow, that's amazing. Now you're a doctor. You move from one state to another state. And you're kind of isolated. You don't have the same community. What does it look like for you during that time as far as like how you were dealing with your mental health?
Well, as I said, I've suffered depression all my life. The one problem with mental illness and medicine is that there is a stigma, and so having to disclose that would be certain. I could have lost my license. There a lot of things could have happened to me. So I was under that mentality that I just had to buck up and do it. And I did. I mean, I'm married, I had a couple of kids. I went through a lot of different things, even when I had my kids, trying to work 80 to 100-hour weeks with children is a difficult thing to do. So I tell the people I did not, my kids weren't raised by wolves, but they were raised by nannies. And the other thing that I did was for my own personal mental health, since I did not see a physician, a psychiatrist, anything like that, is that I made sure that I got outdoors and I exercised. Because the one thing about endorphins, when you're doing something that really does that, it really is a mood elevator. And I would tell my nanny, I said, I'm on my way home, but I've got my running clothes in the car. I'm just going to do a quick run and then I'll come in, because it's hard to turn off my job and then go through the door of my home, mommy, I want to sit in your lap. And I'm still thinking about that. So that's what I did. I took up running. I took up skiing. And someone asked me one time, I didn't know Black people ski. I go, what's your problem? So I took up skiing, and I had a women's group that I belonged to. We would go out and talk about our husbands and drink alcohol and have a lot of fun. But that was it. It was there. I had all these connections. Now, I used to be in the military, and then I got out and I was in private practice, and my husband stayed in, and he gets the call saying he had just been promoted to full colonel, that he was going to be transferred. And that meant leaving my support group that I had. And we moved from Washington State to Virginia, and he went off to work. I took some time off to get my kids into schools, and I was left alone for a long period of time. And my depression came back with a vengeance, because I had lost that network that I had. And it was amazing how, even as a physician, when I started having suicidal ideations, that I could not turn them off. I could not make them go away. And it finally came to the fact that I ended up on a bridge, because the pain was, there's something about voices telling you that you're not a good mother, you're not a good wife, you're not a good doctor, you're not this, you're not that. And I just wanted it to stop. I wanted to shut them up. And the only way at the time I thought I could was to just kill myself. And so I found a bridge. I climbed to the top of the railing and I looked down. And in my comedy, I tell people, I said, even the water was telling me, jump, Lynette. It'll be over soon. You're not that good of a swimmer. And so I'm just contemplating all of this in a way that I still don't understand how I could think that, how I could be so calm in my own depression and suicide ideations that I could contemplate that this was a good idea. And fortunately for me, I had another voice that came into my head, and it was my mother. And my mother, all she said was, call your mama. And I all of a sudden broke out of that fugue state of whatever that I was in. And I went, oh my goodness, if I don't call my mother before I kill myself, she's gonna kill me. Because I grew up in the South, you're afraid of your mother, you're afraid of, what she could do. And it just disconnected that thought process long enough for me to get down from the bridge. My husband found me. I called my mother. We had a long conversation, and I immediately went into therapy at that point. And I went on medication. And I tell people all the time, it was amazing having not been on medication before. Once I started on an antidepressant, oh my goodness, it was like the shutters were open and the sunshine was coming in. I felt so good. And it was like, why didn't I do this before? Well, I didn't do it before because of the fact that I'm a physician, and we supposedly are not allowed to have mental illness, and we are not allowed to get care. And I just said, no, I can't deal with that anymore. I lied a lot. And they can't do anything to me now because I'm retired.
And this is very problematic. As somebody that is very much an advocate about mental health, and I've seen some doctors, and some people don't want to use insurance; they pay out of pocket. I want you to answer this. What can doctors do that are listening to this that may be like, oh my goodness, Dr. Charity, you understand. I've been suffering in silence. And what can people do that are seeing doctors that can, what can we do to help change this kind of mindset? I think about COVID and how doctors have had to show up and the trauma that they are going through during this ordeal, and the fact that they can't say I'm sad, the fact that they're overworked, to me, that feels something feels off about that. Something feels very much off about that.
No, you're absolutely right. In a lot of my presentations, I tell physicians that this is a time now where you have been saving lives. Now it's time to save yourself. When we used to get on planes, the flight attendant would give you that little safety spiel, and she would say, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. And that's what we lack. That's what we as physicians don't do. We're so busy taking care of others, we don't put our oxygen mask on first. The most important thing is, and I really don't care if you have to change your name, lie, pay under the table, whatever you have to do, especially now though, with telehealth, there is a sense of privacy. But I do tell physicians, don't ever go to a psychiatrist that's in your network or that's there, because sometimes they're obligated to disclose. Where are our HIPAA? Where's HIPAA for physicians? We have to check a box on a credentialing packet that says, have you ever had a mental illness? Are you being treated? It's really none of their business, because just as we have lung disease, heart disease, cancer, brain disease, we have all of these things. Mental illness is just another disease and it needs treatment. So I'd say, go out and network, do whatever you have to do, but put your oxygen mask on first, because there's no reason for you to die over this. None whatsoever. We need every physician there. And if you need to, you just need to tell the hospital, I need some days off. And if they want to fire you, you have to decide what is best for you, because working and struggling with a mental condition is not good. So if you can say to yourself, answer these questions. Am I sad? Am I depressed? Do I feel like harming myself or someone else? If you can say yes to any of that, run, don't walk to someone that can help you. Yes. Run, don't walk.
And you unfortunately lost a good colleague to suicide. And that's something that you talk about, kind of regretting not asking these questions. And so now it sounds like you've really been a huge advocate on trying to really talk to physicians and really advocate for a change to take place, where mental health is not being so stigmatized within your network of community.
No, yeah, it's very important. When he died, it's one of those things of, you can tell that something is going on. We know the symptoms of depression. A lot of times it's isolation. It's that whole concept of, I can take care of myself. I can work it out myself. You change your mentality. You get angry about things. His whole demeanor just changed. And I tried to talk to him about, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's, I've suffered with, finally, he just told me, mind my own business. And hindsight's always 20/20. Maybe I should have just forced myself. Sometimes you can't help someone if they don't want to be helped. But the point is that we have to try. We have to try, because, he was 53 years old. And recently, in April of last year, we had the physician, Lorna Breen, in New York City. She's seeing COVID patients coming to her ER nonstop. She gets COVID, and she tells people she's sad, but she doesn't want to do anything. And the next thing you know, she's dead. The warning signs were there, but because of this stigma, it's very difficult for us as physicians to just bear it. I bear it now because as I tell people, no one can hurt me. I mean, you can't take away my livelihood. You can't take away. 41 years, I've done it, and I'm comfortable now just sharing my dirty laundry, if that's what you want to call it. But there have been a lot of things in my life that people need to hear. My life is not a bed of roses. Your life is not a bed of roses. And if I speak my truth, some of my conversation may go off on you, and you may think about it and say, I think I need to work on that. Or I think I need to talk to that friend of mine that I've been really concerned about, because that's what we have to do. We have to take care of each other now. And it's not just because of COVID.
No, it's not. That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I know that was that's been a very challenging time in your life. And like you said, if you want to call it dirty laundry, we all have dirty laundry, right? And I think what you allow is a sense of community, a sense of like, I'm not alone. The same thing that AA provides, right? I go in, I'm trying to get sober, but then you have somebody 20 years of sobriety and you're like, oh my gosh, like they share my story, maybe I can do it. And so to hear you kind of say that and talk so candidly, I think is super, super helpful for people that are listening right now. Now we're going to fast forward, and somehow you decide that you want to be a comedian. I mean, like, what don't you do, Dr. Charity? How does this come about? How do you decide that you want to be a comedian?
Well, it was very interesting, and I sometimes feel like I have a guardian angel or something or other that just sort of has watched me go through the different acts in my life. My first act, growing up in the segregated South, my second act of being a physician, and now I'm in my third act. And my third act started when I was 60 years old, about 8 years ago, when I got fired from a job. Who knew that doctors could be fired? Oh my goodness. But maybe if you call someone an idiot that has power, you can be, which I did. So I called the person an idiot.
You was tired, Dr. Charity.
I was tired. But you listeners out there, we used to do 24-hour call. Most people have an 8-hour day. Doctors don't have an 8-hour day. And we take call, and I had done a 24-hour call. I had to come back after only 3 hours of sleep. I'm 60 years old. Come on, And so I come back, I'm doing cases, and finally I just go, I'm falling asleep in the operating room, and I'm not even sucking on my own gas. I'm just tired. And so I do this one case, and then I just say, all right, I'm done. They go, no, Dr. Charity, we have another case for you. I go, no, you don't. I'm done. And I walk out. I said, put it on the other list. It's not an emergency. Put it on another. I'm gone. And I come back to work after getting some sleep, and I get called into the principal's office, and I'm told I'm not a team player and blah, blah, blah. And I could feel it just, because we hold in our emotions for fear of whatever when we are not true to ourselves. And I became my authentic self, I feel, at that moment when it burst out of my mouth and I go, you're an idiot. And that was it. And I burst out of the office. And the most embarrassing part of it all, though, was I call it the perp walk. I had to do the perp walk. The security guard comes and escorts me to my locker. I have to open up my locker, and I had some scrubs in there that I had planned to steal, take home with me because they make great pajamas. Had to leave those, made sure I didn't have anything else in there. And then she escorted me out of the hospital. And as I'm walking through the hallways, it's almost like I had COVID, and it wasn't even COVID, because people stood back as if I was contagious. They didn't say anything to me. Then I go out the door, they deactivate my badge, and now I'm just, I'm still Dr. Charity, but I am no longer part of that hospital. But at that point, I stood there for a moment, and I got kind of weepy, but I go, this might be a good thing. I need to think about this. What should I do? But first, I need to get another job first. So I just walked across the street and I go, hey, do you need an anesthesiologist? I happen to be available right now. And I got a job. No nights, no weekends, no call. Nice little day job. And I went to bed that night and I woke up. And all of a sudden, I just said, I know what I want to do. I want to be a stand-up comic, lounge singer, voiceover actor. Yes, it came to me in a flash. And because along my journey, some of my patients had said, you're kind of funny. Or, I love doing kids. And so I learned how to do voices. I knew all the words to Frozen, let it go, let it go. I could do a lot of things like that. So the kids liked me a lot. And I still even have trinkets that parents and even my adult patients had given me over the years, saying how much I had made them feel comfortable, because I would go to them and go, you made it so that I couldn't have anything to eat or drink after midnight. And I would poke them in the belly and say, you could live off the fat of the land for another day or two. And they would laugh. And so people would say, you've got a funny bone somewhere there. But, I just decided I'd give it a shot. So that's what I did. And the first time I got up on stage and did my set, I was so scared. I had 2 glasses of wine. It was late at night. I usually go to bed at 8 o'clock, and it was 11 o'clock at night before I went on. And I get up on that stage and I look out at the audience. I take a deep breath and I start my set. And my set starts out, hi, I'm Dr. Charity. I'm an anesthesiologist. That's right. I get paid to pass gas. People laughed. And then after that, I was on a roll. Wow. And at the end, 2 days later, because I still work, 2 days later, I'm in the operating room. They wheel a patient in. I go, hi, I'm Dr. Charity. I'm your anesthesiologist. The guy sits bolt upright. He goes, I know who you are. And I go, oh my goodness, what did I do? He says, weren't you at the comedy club the other night? You're a real anesthesiologist? You're a real doctor? And I go, yeah, I think I am. Sure, yes, I am. Or I colored. Back in the day, they used to have this thing you could do. You pay $10 and you draw a pirate and you get a certificate saying you're an artist. So I told him that story and he just cracked up. I said, and we'll talk about it more later, but you need to go to sleep now. And I gave him his little propofol and off to sleep he went. And when he woke up, he told everyone in the recovery room, I saw her at the comedy club. She's funny. And after that, it's like, I can do this. I can do it. I did not become a singer because I did some voice coaching, and I was told that, I have a very distinctive voice and I could be a backup singer. I could be the Pointer Sister that was in the back, but I couldn't be a lead singer. And I did some voiceover, I did some commercials and stuff. But what I fell in love with was the comedy. And to monetize the comedy, I started doing professional speaking using humor. And there you have it.
That's awesome.
Long story.
No, it was a great story. And, one of the things that I want people to do is really believe in their dream, work for their dream. And as we've talked over the course of this hour, you went from watching your sister pass away in front of you. You had to run to school just to get a good education. You were told by your guidance counselor that Negroes can't go to medical school. You could be a typist, right? Becoming an anesthesiologist, getting fired, and now doing what you're doing now. What kind of advice could you give to somebody that may be listening to this right now, and they can relate to the obstacles that you faced? And you know, this humor thing that you have, I'm sure it's really allowed you to like propel forward despite the obstacles that took place. But what kind of advice can you give to somebody that's listening to this right now?
You know, it's just so funny because someone put up a message here. You know, Dr. Charity, you're super amazing. How do I see you as stand-up act? Are you on YouTube? Anyway, no, I'm not yet, but it will happen. But yeah, I tell people there's something, we talk about mindset all the time, and it's time for us to move out of our own way, you know, identify our overwhelm, negate those naysayers that are out there. And, you know, bottom line is find your true authentic self and be it. I've tried to be a physician in that, and you know, we call it white coat syndrome, you know, where well, we call the white coat syndrome when people don't like white coats, but we have a persona as physicians that it's almost like we're not allowed to be human beings. We are supposed to be just this professional robot that goes through things. I'm telling everyone, you know, if you know anything about ikigai, if you know anything about, you know, what gets you up in the morning, what makes you happy, you know, follow that. You know, and it's amazing how once you find something you truly love, if you're worried about income or finances or whatever, you work into that. That will come. But if you're in a miserable spot in your life, you know, the money makes no difference. The money makes no difference if you're dead. You know, there's ever been a hearse that has a Brinks truck behind it. You can't take it with you. So have fun in life right now. Enjoy yourself. You know, yes, you have to make a living, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun doing it.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. I agree. And when I think about humor, and I feel like, especially like Black people, a lot of times, you know, we're waiting for the stimulus. I've seen a lot of memes about waiting for that stimmy. Yesterday's events on Capitol Hill, a lot of memes. What do you think it is about comedy? Because it's not that we're excited about injustices or the divide, but I find that the humor that we've been able to display kind of has some kind of healing mechanism. What do you think it is about comedy that, you know, has gotten us through?
the important thing is that they've been doing a lot of research on laughter, because we always say laughter is the best medicine. But what they're finding out now is that laughter, just the act of laughing is a mood elevator. You know, it can affect your immune system. And I tell people that it's hard to be depressed if you're rolling around on the floor, laughing your gluteus maximus off. Or in my case, as a woman of a certain age, rolling around on the floor, laughing your gluteus maximus off and losing bladder and bowel function, because it does happen. But that is the importance of laughter right now, and that we are constantly bombarded about the negativity that's going on, and with COVID, with what happened in DC, all of that. But the most important thing is that you have to just sort of take the information and then figure out that's the problem. Now, what is the punchline to that problem? Turning those problems into punchlines. People say, oh my goodness, you went through all of these awful things in your life. And I go, yeah, I did. But the important thing is that by being able to turn it around and not being the victim of my story, but being the hero of my story, makes it all better. And there's just something about just letting it all hang out, literally, and letting yourself just be free and laugh at yourself,
Yes.
because that works out too.
Yes.
You know? It is.
It's all about perspective and the way that you talk about putting yourself in the hero role. Your lens on your life could have went a completely different way, right? You
Mhm.
could have seen yourself differently as a victim as you were, with the obstacles that took place. But no, you're not looking at it that way. And that's one of the things one of my taglines is I really want to help people kind of shift the way they think. And if we can really do that for our life, because we got to get out of our own way. And one of the things that I've learned in my role as a therapist working with so many amazing people is that it's not the thing outside of them that's stopping them from moving forward. It's actually the noise that's taking place up here. And unfortunately, the noise that's taking place ends up just becoming background noise. And we're literally walking around with our own bullies, right? And we don't even understand it. What happened with you on the bridge, it wasn't that day that it started. That noise became background noise, and you have learned to live with it to the point where you couldn't take it anymore. So it's going to be so crucial for us to really be mindful on how we can get out of our own way. Does that sound
That's it.
accurate to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. That inner critic sometimes is, you just need to shut it up, tell it to go somewhere,
Mhm.
because we are not our thoughts. We are our actions. And no matter what we do, when I get up in the morning, I just have a little routine. I just say, "Hello, world. Here I am. What mischief can I get in today?" Yeah, because we have to be happy. If we just constantly look at what's going on and globally every day, it's just going to wear you down.
Mhm.
You've got to find that silver lining, and there is one. I have a 2.5 year old grandson, and I had to babysit overnight. In fact, I got tired of him and sent him home. But the point is that he will do something. He'll do something that is, for me, no big deal, and he'll go, "Nana, I did it." And I go, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to start using that as a tagline. I did it." Because he's so excited that he did something. Anything that we do that we accomplish now, I just learned this whole streaming apparatus and learning how to I taught a 90-year-old friend of mine how to FaceTime. And the first time she did it, all I saw were the hairs in her nostril. You know, okay, I see you. I go, "No, put it back a little bit." But those are the things that make you laugh and make the world great.
Yes.
It is. It's just fun.
Yes. Oh, that was so good. I appreciate you. You are funny, and you're great. And I think the way that you deliver your story, because it's not that you're coming here and telling us that you grew up with the silver spoon, everything was perfect. There's a lot of hard times that you've been able to overcome. If people wanted to like have you speak, like how would they be able to have you come on their platform to talk?
Very easily, they just go to my website, drcharityspeaks.com, or my LinkedIn page actually is a very good place, Lynette Charity, MD. I'm on Instagram. I'm learning all these platforms. I have a background, bunch of little people, imaginary people that are keeping me, because this is a new platform for me. I was a keynote speaker that could use the privilege of the platform to do my comedy, to do everything. Now I've had to do it on this screen here, and it's interesting, but I'm enjoying this. I still really get to sort of let my hair down, what little bit I still have left, and it's so nice meeting people like you too, Celeste,
Oh, thank you.
that pull out the stories, you make me feel comfortable, and you're doing a great service for everyone out there. We need mental health people that are champions of our cause, because you can't do this in a vacuum. You can't do this in isolation. That's when they get you. So
Mhm.
it's very important for you to have people like Celeste to listen to.
Thank
I
you.
agree. Yeah,
So
no, it's been
so
great.
technically this is your fourth act then, right? Technically, if with the whole computer thing.
Well, I guess it could be. I just thought I'd consider it part of my third act because, I'm learning this and I'm and I didn't get a stimulus thing, it's not fair. Where's my $600? Huh? But no, it's I still feel this is part of my third act, and because everything is there's a 3-act play, first act, second act, third act. Oh, and I'm writing my memoir, and I expect everyone on this to buy it when it's done.
Yes.
Self-promotion.
You have to. Dr. Charity, you are amazing. I really appreciate you. Make sure for people listening, you can go to drcharityspeaks.com. Also, I have the links to her Facebook, her LinkedIn, her Instagram account. So if you ever want her to speak, and now she does it live. Now she can add that she speaks live because she's speaking live today for the first time. I popped her live. Cherry, thank you.
That's good.
Well, I'm talking to a comedian, so I'm trying to match you, Dr. Charity. I'm trying to match you.
Yeah. I may have to put that in somewhere. Yeah, I got my cherry popped with Celeste, the therapist. Woo! That's good. It's good.
Thank you. Yeah. Maybe I have another act in my life at some point. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to do that, I've got some great people in the comedy realm. I really suggest that a lot of people learn, because one thing that's important also to know is that you will deal with a lot of hecklers in your life. And the thing is that you learn stand-up comedy, you will learn how to deal with your hecklers. And I have done workshops actually teaching physicians how to deal with their hecklers, because we've got them. And you get them too. Everyone out there has a heckler. And you just need to learn how in improv we do a yes and type of thing. You just learn how to say it back. So there's a lot of things to learn. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Charity. I know I went an hour past your bedtime. Your bedtime's at 8. It's 9.
But realize I'm in Arizona. It's only 7 o'clock my time.
Okay. So I'm good. Yeah.
I got my endorphins up. I'm my mood is elevated. You've just brought the best out of me. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing your story on this platform. And if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you give her a follow and share this episode with somebody that you love. Thank you so much.
Thank you all, wherever you are. Loved it.
Bye, Dr. Charity.
Bye.
So thank you guys so much for listening. That was Dr. Charity. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on Facebook. You can find her on LinkedIn. And then you can also find her on her website. She's amazing. I will be back Monday for a new episode of Celeste the Therapist podcast. If you want to follow me, go to Celeste the Therapist. You can find me on all social media platforms, or go to my website, celestetherapist.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys.
Smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and you'll